Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you to Ananke for creating this platform and for walking the talk about change and actually building the future that we want to see. I'll start with a short introduction about the panel and then move on to our fantastic panelists. This panel was necessary because we are all increasingly aware of the inequalities and biases in the literary world. This has been confirmed by statistics, research, and reports. Most recently, I'm thinking of the research by the University of London, Spread the Word, and bookseller called Rethinking Diversity in Publishing. But more importantly, we are acutely aware of this inequality and this bias because we know that our stories are raging inside us, and we need places where we can tell our stories without shame, without guilt, without a fear of being judged, and without a fear of not meeting expectations of gatekeepers who want our stories tailored a certain way, edited to suit a very narrow worldview. I believe that no long-term change can take place without redressing the imbalance in the ecosystem and by creating spaces which perform this intent, this decision, which are built with the mission and the intention of allowing stories to be told which would otherwise go unheard. In a world where the odds seem stacked against people from certain regions, ethnicities, genders, sexual orientation, or people writing in certain languages, where there's a pressure to homogenize stories to suit the hegemony of the few in power, this is an act of resistance. We no longer need to fight for a voice or a share in spaces which are built on principles which are expired, because we have the power to build new spaces from the ground up on principles which are meaningful and relevant for us today. As we shift our perspective towards creating and populating these alternative spaces, we need what is called in business a blue ocean strategy. It is very hard, but we need more people taking up this role more urgently than ever before. With this intent, we have invited 3 editors who are at the helm of different projects each. Their journeys will show us how it's done and hopefully empower many more people to step forward bravely in this direction. I thank all my panelists for being here today, and I'll move on to some introductions. I apologize in advance for inevitable mispronunciations. Rosemarie Hudson was born in Jamaica and grew up in London. In 1998, she founded the first publishing company, Black Amber. Its ethos was to publish unheard voices in English and international languages, particularly writers and writings from Africa, Asia, and the Caribbean. Among the many authors she published to critical acclaim during this period were Patricia Camper, Alex Wheatle, Kovri Madhavan, Rachel Manley, Yvonne Brewster, and Gaston Paul Effa. The company was later acquired by Arcadia. Rosemarie served on the board of the book trade charity and is a mentor on the Arts Council project, Decibel. In 2010, Rosemarie started Hope Road, whose mission has been to promote literary voices from Africa, Asia, and the Caribbean in exploring themes of identity, cultural stereotyping, and injustices. Welcome, Rosemarie.
Thank you so much.
Our next panelist is Mehvash Amin. Mehvash Amin is an English language poet based in Lahore. She has been nominated for the Pushcart Prize for her poem entitled Karachi. Her poems have been published in various literary journals such as Vellum, New International Poetics Canada, Sugar Mule USA, One Hand Clapping UK, The Missing Slate, and books such as A Khanna's Capitals, Bloomsbury, and The Stained Glass Window, Liberty Books, amongst others. Mehvash has a publishing house, Broken Leg Publications, and is publisher and editor-in-chief of the Aleph Review, a yearly anthology of creative writing and art. She has also compared sessions for the Islamabad Literary Festival and Ishi Magazine India, besides participating in the Islamabad, Karachi, and Lahore Literature Festivals. Welcome, Mehvash. Our third panelist is Wajiha. Wajiha Hyder is a journalist currently working as assistant editor at the News on Sunday, where she's responsible for the magazine's books and travel sections. As a staff writer for the magazine, her writing mainly focuses on culture books and stories from life. Over the years, she has built her career as a writer by writing features and personal essays on various subjects. Her debut short story appeared in the anthology The Stained Glass Window, Stories of the Pandemic from Pakistan. She has previously worked as sub-editor and staff writer at Pakistan Today. Her work has also appeared in The Missing Slate, where she worked as a contributing editor. Wajiha holds an accounting qualification from the ACCA UK and has worked at Packages Limited for 4 years. She currently resides in Lahore. Welcome, Wajiha.
Thank you, Naima. Thank you.
I thought a great way to start the conversation would be to have each of you discuss with us briefly your individual journeys. What was the gap that you set out to fulfill through your projects and commitments, whether these were new projects that you were creating, as was the case for Mehvash and Rosemarie, or whether these were already existing projects which you were determined to give a new direction. Shall we start with Rosemarie?
Okay. I came from the film industry, and it was a matter of taking a sabbatical from my job at the time in the industry. And I went to university, and I just wanted a break, really. But while I was there, I decided, why don't I leave this course and do something? Because a sabbatical is usually just have a break and just relax and do not a lot afterwards. But in my second year, I decided what I wanted to do. And I thought, why not do something about the lack of representation of the books I wanted to read? And that's when I set up my first company. And then by the time I finished my course, I was publishing straight away. I came straight out of university and set up my company. And it was very exciting, actually. It was a matter of just doing something about what you felt strongly about, because no one else was doing what I was doing. There was a wonderful lady who was doing who was running a children's publishing company, but there was no one doing adult fiction from the areas I covered, which is Asia, Africa, and the Caribbean, because they were so underrepresented. Those regions were underrepresented. So that's how I started in publishing.
Thank you. Mehvash?
Well, I was already editing a couple of, I was editor of Libas International for a very long time. And it was a time when my children were growing up. So I really didn't have time to follow my passion, which has always been writing. And, but sometimes you find something in the suburbs of your passion, and that was editing. I was asked to edit Libas International, and I happily carried on with it for about 10 years. After I left that, I joined her as editor of Hello Pakistan. That was a new project, and the publisher asked me to join that. Did that, and when I left that, I also did. I was doing the the style magazine of Tea Edit of the Herald Tribune. Okay. But as I left these couple of the last two magazines, or I was doing those, I just happens. I mean, I was writing always. I was always writing poetry, and as I was growing up, I had felt this particular lack of space for poets or any creative expression in Pakistan. I mean, and especially there wasn't this great opportunity to sort of fan out through the website and find people who would publish you. So it was a very kind of limited space. And so I really thought about starting something here. And I joined up initially with Athar Tahir, who is a poet. And he started this International Center for Pakistani Writing in English at Kinnaird College. He asked me to volunteer, and I suggested writing, why don't we start a journal? I mean, just like that. I said, that'll propagate your voices, it'll archive what you've collected. And we all went gung-ho, and we joined, and there were many people of us. There was Momna Mela, there was Hira Naguib, there was Ilona, there was lots of people. But then things happened. I broke my leg, and hence Broken Leg Publications. And I was laid up in bed, and somehow Athar went off in another direction. And I just thought, during that time when I was lying down in bed and not doing anything, let me get everybody together, let me send out emails, let me start this non-profit publication. And for young writers, as well as those who are more established, so that the established are archived and the young ones find encouragement from the older ones and find it happier to be in a space with older, more established writers. So that was my aim. And of course, art I've always loved, and that had to be part of the equation. So therefore, I looked around and collected a lot of young artists and some established ones, and it became an art and literary journal. 5 years ago.
So Mehvash, right now your journal, is it entirely Pakistan focused or is it Asia focused?
No, 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 no. It's not just even Asia focused. We have contributors from the USA, Canada, Chile, Italy, France, to the Far East, Sri Lanka, India, lots of Indian
Okay.
contributors, Bangladesh, then Indonesia, Singapore. I mean, it's becoming slowly a global kind of magazine, but centered in Pakistan.
Okay.
And so lots of people are England, of course. So lots of people are sending us contributions from all over the world, and we are very happy to be a Pakistan-based kind of international journal.
Excellent. Thank you. Wajiha.
Um,
You did unmute yourself, but we can't hear you.
yeah.
Wajiha, could you start? Because I think we lost you there for a bit.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, I can.
Sorry. So, firstly, I'd have to say that it's my absolute pleasure to be sharing, space with such accomplished editors. I'm just so happy to be here and to have this opportunity to converse and to learn from you all. And thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me. To Ananke and to Naima and Sabine for inviting me.
A
So,
pleasure.
coming to your question, I think I think this journey honestly, never ends. It is it's sort of an ongoing process, like with every other profession. I think that you learn something new every day, and everything helps you with your progress as an editor. Um, when I first started, I hardly had any experience handling a full-fledged book reviews section for a magazine. And although it was an exciting prospect, it was nonetheless a daunting one. Finding a new book, contacting the publisher for an advanced reader's copy, commissioning a book reviewer for a review, receiving the review, and then the whole back and forth of the editing process. It seems quite simple, but as anyone involved in the process will tell you, it isn't quite so. Every step presents a number of twists and roadblocks. But I think that I was quite lucky in that respect, as I found excellent mentors. Both the former and the current editors of the magazine were wonderful in that respect. And when you're working with editors who are meticulous in their approach and with who diligently read every word sent to them, and that that so that no error could sneak by them, you learn stuff from them, and then you make it a part of your own work ethic. I believe having a good mentor is essential to any young editor's progress. But the publishing world is constantly changing, as we know. It's constantly evolving, and the times require us to evolve with them, which can present difficult to introduce change, especially when things have been working so well traditionally, and there is no specific reason to introduce a change per se. But sometimes these changes are absolutely necessary, especially considering the digital world that we are now a part of. To bring about a change isn't always an easy process. You need to learn a lot, observe a lot to get to a point where you can then introduce something that you've been wanting to do for a long time. It is a long, tedious process, but I think ultimately rewarding, as well. So yeah.
Whoa, you three make it sound like a breeze, which I'm quite sure that it is not. So I'm very interested from the point of view of future editors. I'm very interested in knowing about some real challenges that you face on the ground and how you surmount them. Mehvash, would you like to?
Yeah. Yes. I mean, editing and publishing is a very difficult job. It really is. And it's no surprise that a lot of publishers actually don't end up making any money.
Oh, yeah.
So having known that, I started off by making it a non-profit organization. And I was very, very, very lucky to find three like-minded souls who were passionate about literature, who are almost working, let's say not almost working pro bono, and they are still passionate and they're so interested in the in everything that makes it a lot easier. But at every step, I find that there is always, every year there's one thing that I find is that like bookstores in Pakistan don't quite realize that, okay, I mean, they don't distinguish between a bestseller from the US, for example, which is already being published by a company which is making millions, and a homegrown fledgling publication like the Aleph Review. I mean, which is literally, I mean, we're just, so they take about, well, I wouldn't, a huge profit. So that doesn't leave anything for us really to, because we have to go back to the drawing board every year.
Exactly.
And you have to collect monies, and you can't go on forever just pouring things from your own pocket. It's not possible. The one way out is finding sponsors. Sponsors for a magazine or journal, for a journal, are the same as ads for a magazine,
Yeah.
where you
Yeah.
up a magazine, you see ads. So those sponsors have been excellent, I mean, I must say. But every year it's like starting from the beginning and fighting your, and like swimming across the current, and okay, I mean, for example, little example, like if I find that somebody calls me from Karachi, and there's one particular lady who's very sweet. She always goes to a certain store there and then tells me, they're out of books, they don't have your books. And I'll then have to ring up and I'll say, oh, apparently you're out of books, can I send you some more? And it's a huge process, I mean, each time it's a process, and it's so some of the little things of publishing. I mean, the editing of the magazine is another business altogether, but this is what publishing entails quite a lot.
Yes. Rosemarie?
Well, Bunny has said it all, actually. It is such a struggle for small presses, the constant worry about money. And you find a wonderful book and you think, in my case, it's always been, and it is up to this moment. Now, which picture can I sell to publish that book? Which bits of jewelry can I sell? But seriously, this is how it's, but sometimes a book, you're lucky, very rarely, you're lucky that one book that you publish today will pay for the next book. But always you have to have that amount of money up front before the book gets into the shop. So you're thinking about the editor, as Bunny sort of covers it nicely, the editorial side has to be paid for, the design and the sales rep and all of that has to be paid for. So the challenge constantly is, where's the money coming from? Because although you're spending in the UK almost 7,000 to 10,000 pounds to get a book in the bookshop, you have to constantly worry about that. But there are other things which override the challenges, because you worry so much, but when you find an amazing manuscript and you think, there's no way I'm going to let this pass. So you think, oh, I've got to find a way, I've got to do this. And it is very exciting. This is the thing with publishing, it's a very, very exciting profession. And, you wake up at 2:00 in the morning and you think, oh my God, through gritted teeth, you think, oh my God, end of the month, got to pay the bills, and you start, as Bunny said, you start all over again. So it's like every book, it's the new beginning. It's a new set of it's a new set of problems, it's a new set of worry, but at the same time, it's a repetition of what went before, you know. So, but it's there's something about being a small press, it's the excitement of it. And I don't think a lot of the mega book publishing houses have so much fun as we have in spite of our problems.
Mm.
So it's that constant trying to keep your head above water. That is the main thing about publishing. Keeping your head just above, it's your nose actually, because your chin's gone down into the water. You're trying to keep your nose from getting all the water in. So I find it, you wake up in the morning and you think, okay, it's another day and it's going to be another problem, but we can do this. We can do this.
So you've led me to my next question, which I was going to ask. Sorry.
No, please go ahead.
You know, in your line of work, it would seem, I mean, quite clearly, you all have a lot of fun doing what you do, but it would seem that for a long time, you don't see results, and the results and the rewards could be very long in the coming.
Yeah.
And it would be natural to compare the effort that you put in, the time and energy that you put in, with the rewards that you reap. And by rewards, I don't just mean money. I mean, you know, the results, the recognition for the book. So how do you wake up every morning with that perspective, and how do you always keep that long-term perspective, you know, top of mind? And how do you not feel that you're screaming in the void while you're struggling through or working through a project?
Who do you want? Should I continue or?
Yeah, please do. Please do. I'll circle back to the others.
Yes. The rewards are when the reviewers, the book you've struggled with, when you've got amazing editors and proofreaders and designer, you have all this talent around you. So you, in a way, you feel you can't let them down. You've got to do your bit. And then you find reviewers say nice things about you and your book and the authors. And then you're shortlisted for a prize and you start jumping up and down and, you know, crashing through the floorboards. And the readers and the reviewers makes it worth all of that sleepless night. Because when you take a book on, a manuscript, a raw manuscript, you know, a couple of 100 pages, and you turn it into a book, at the back of your mind, you can see while you're reading the manuscript, you know what you want to do with this book. You feel, you can see where this book could go, and you push towards that particular goal, and you aim it at the people who you feel want this book. And it's that constant targeting, and it's that looking for the right placement and the right reviewers. And so the rewards are really, really amazing. Really, really amazing. Even if it's a little review in a little magazine, you think, oh, somebody likes my book. I wasn't the only one who liked it. That is a big reward when somebody else, you know, somebody else say nice things about it. Yes.
Thank you. Mehvash?
Well, yes, I do agree with Rosemarie. But actually, because the Aleph Review as such is something which is the whole mission of the Aleph Review is to find young authors, to find young voices, young artists. And I mean, the established ones are there. Of course, they are like a backbone, and we need them to give legitimacy and you know, backbone to our young ones. But that is such a rewarding thing by itself, to find somebody new and to then potentially have that person and kind of see where they could go, and sometimes, and they do. And for me, that is a huge reward. And especially so because since when I was young and writing, we had mentors. I had Tawfiq Rafat and Kaleem Umar as mentors, but we didn't have a space in which to actually, you know, print our stuff. And I just think that by itself is such a rewarding thing, and being able to, and since I'm editor-in-chief as well, and I have 3 other editors, to be also, while I'm publishing, I mean, maybe just publishing might become a kind of a traumatic thing, but because I'm editing as well, to be able to, on almost a daily basis, we have a website as well in which we publish new material. So to be able to find new voices, whether they're poets, whether they're, essayists, whether they're short fiction writers, or whatever they are, and then to find a great new artists. And you'd be surprised how amazing some of the artists. They come from Balochistan, from Hazara, from Sindh, and they have such an amazing mindscape, that they are able to lift themselves from that small place and become like big artists. And similarly with some of the writers, you can tell when there's that spirit or that innate talent in somebody, no matter how much the surrounding kind of, maybe the vocabulary is not good enough, or it needs to be honed, or it needs to be fixed. But you can always, I think, tell when there's of value, like a gemstone, which has to be faceted and polished and all. But that's what I really enjoy. I think that's what keeps me going, to find new voices, find new people.
Fascinating. And I'll circle back to that in more detail after hearing Wajiha on this point.
Yeah, basically what both Rosemarie and Mehvash said. But I would like to add that a universal challenge, that challenge for book review editors, I feel is the struggle to produce an unbiased evaluation of new books. Something that has always been hard, but is probably harder now in this day and age. When one search of a book can give you detailed evaluations in less than a minute, and you don't know which one is biased and which one is unbiased. And so I think it is necessary to be able to provide a dependable space that readers can probably turn to for an honest review. And if you've succeeded in providing that, maybe that is your ultimate reward, I think, and that is what you work for, and that is what keeps you going.
Fascinating to hear editors talk about diamonds that they can see, diamonds which are still in the rough, but which they can see, and let that vision be a guide. So that brings me to my next question, because we're moving into the second half, and I thought, there are questions that writers always want to ask editors, but editors never have the time to respond. So Mehvash, Rosemarie, and Wajiha, what is talent? How do you spot it?
I think, when I see something which is actually, there's a kernel, there's some kernel which undeniably, after having gone through a lot of text and a lot of material, and not only just as editor-in-chief of the Aleph Review, but also for earlier on for Libas and for various other magazines, and especially for the Aleph Review, there is, in creative writing, I find that there is something, there's a kernel, and I don't know how to describe it, but you can find it. And I'll give you a little example of somebody who I thought had a lot of talent, who sent us something 2 years ago or 3 years ago, and a poem, and it was about Lahore, and it was really well written. But I think he just was very young and went on rambling a bit too much. So both myself and my associate editor suggested that he should, there were certain brilliant stanzas in that poem, and there were others which were kind of taking away from that innate sort of beauty of the other ones. So we suggested some edits, and he didn't agree, and he sort of dropped out of the race. And we said we were fine with that, and we said, well, if you ever want to come back, we are here for you. The next year he came again with a short story, and this time again I found him there was this talent. It was just there. I mean, you could see it. But again, I think where sometimes young voices just run on and on.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
we all do.
They don't know when to stop. They don't know when to put it, how to contain it, or how to read your work again and self-edit and cross out certain things. We were taught that by our mentors, but a lot of young people just feel that every word that they put on paper is somehow gifted by God. So, I mean, which is sometimes And sometimes it isn't the case.
I'm sure a lot of writers are not laughing.
No.
No, but honestly, but he then allowed us to sort of edit his story a bit the second time around, and I was happy to see that it really became a really lovely story, and we put it in our issue. So there it is. It's something you can recognize. I think by now I can recognize it.
Okay.
Mm.
Yeah, Rosemary?
No, you definitely can recognize it. And at times you're reading something, especially when it's especially from a new writer, and there's something that happens at the back of your neck when you're reading that. The hair stands up at the back of your neck. And if say you start reading, I normally like reading on a Sunday afternoon after lunch. And if I'm still reading at say 2 o'clock in the morning, you know that's a winner. Because you can, as a reader, you can always tell within the first couple of paragraphs if it's worth reading any further. So you might read the first chapter, but there's always something, that hair at the back of your neck, that rough diamond that is there, you know something is there. It's not always perfect. More often than not, it's not perfect, especially from young writers, because Bunny said they want to tell you every single thing that's in their head. And it goes on and on and on and on. And then you have to start cutting and talking them through cutting. You know, you get writers who would submit something and said, well, my mother liked it and my sister liked it. So I don't know why you don't like it. But it's not a matter of not liking it. It's a matter of saying there's some discipline we have to apply here. But it's very exciting when you get something written from somebody's young, and I call it for raw text, because I've experienced where a new writer would come who have had like 20 rejections from other publishers, and their manuscript in particular book, and it lands on my desk, and after reading like the first couple of pages, this is what we've been looking for. Just straight away, you know, and you say to yourself, why are all these other publishers not see what I'm seeing? But they're looking, I don't know what they're looking for. So for them now, you have to sit calmly with that author and calm them down, because once you've taken their books on, that's another excitement, because they get so excited. It's a pleasure to watch. They get so excited when you said, yes, we'll take on your book. Physically, literally jumping up and down, they do, and say, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And you hear it all. And I remember one particular author, when she lived abroad, and I rang her up and said, oh, we love your book. And I could, apparently she had her husband on one line and she had me on the other line. And so when I said we're going to publish it, she screamed down the phone to her husband. And then she was screaming on the phone out to both of us. So it was, that sort of things make you want to do so much for that author, because they've worked so hard and they want to be recognized. And it's up to us to help them to achieve their goal and to help them to get out there, because sometimes small presses will publish a new writer, and within less than a year, a big publisher will come and take them away, because but they were the publisher in the first place who didn't want to take the chance.
Yeah.
And that sort of a nurturing that you're given. In the early days, I used to think, how dare they? But I realized it's not them, it's for the author's sake. The author needs to move on to where there's money to be spent on their marketing and promotion. So you have to stop being jealous about it and just be happy for them because they've achieved something. So there's wonderful. It's such a pleasure to find exciting writing, and I think sometimes I wish I could have written that sentence. You know, you have this constant, oh, how did he write that? That feeling of excitement or getting that story across to a reader, and that person's been sitting in a garret for what, a year or so, and putting these words on a page, and oh, it makes the hairs on your arm just stand on end. You know, it's very exciting finding new writing.
Yeah, Wajiha.
Well, both Mehvash and Rosemarie have, pretty much said everything. But I think, for me, it's a good pitch. I think, I know I have a promising writer if the pitch is good, if I have a good pitch. And, as for what qualifies as a good pitch, well, when you read a pitch for a story, you instantly know that the senders know if the sender has actually put in some effort in forming and presenting the idea to you. A pitch will be good when the writer is clear about the subject that they want to write about, then they have done proper research on it, and they have made sure that the specific angle that they want to cover has not been covered by the magazine before, or the outlet that they're sending their piece to. Basically, yeah, it's pretty much about the pitch. If the pitch is good, I think the writer is good to go. I'll be happy with the writer.
Mhm. Thanks. So you all speak a lot about, how you can instinctively tell when you read the quality of the work. I'm curious, in addition to the quality of the work, are there attributes related to attitude which often accompany talent? And would you tell us about them, Mehvash?
I would love to tell you. I think I am really happy with writers who are, who sort of, besides their talent, and can also read submission guidelines and
That one.
adhere to them.
ABC.
Yeah. So I mean, it's really a real delight if you find that the text that has been given to you has been cleaned, has gone through the grinder a little bit, that the author has bothered to uh, look at his piece again, or her piece, and then and fix it, little things, and that yeah, that they've read the submission guidelines. It really makes a lot of difference. I mean, I know that the work of the editor is editing, but still you need some basic uh, cleanliness
Yes,
to the
yes,
text.
yes.
And that makes a lot of difference. It makes you think of that person as a somewhat more tuned in person. And I know we're talking about artists here and writers and all that, and they're not supposed to be, but in this world, in today's world, especially if you're sending something to a journal which is accepting lots and lots of contributions, it always helps if you have read the guidelines and fixed things up and gone with spell check and done all those things. Then of course there are lots of other things which are left to the editor to fix, but those things should be adhered to write. I would say that to writers.
Okay, thanks. Rosemarie.
Um, I'm thinking a bit about the submission guidelines because so many people just do not look at that. And so, for instance, we do not do drama, poetry, or children or sci-fi, but they send it anyway. And then a few weeks later, they'd said, "Haven't you read my manuscript?" And you basically have to control yourself to say, "Did you read the guidelines? Did you read what we do? We don't do that sort of type of book." Um, there's rejections, one can reject books because of presentation. Like when he said it's a matter of them taking some pride in how they deliver their work. Straight away, I mean, I won't read anything that's like 10-point double-sided page typed on, and sometimes I get a manuscript in italics. And so you straight away don't even go there because if they don't know the basics, which is very important, and they should learn as well as writing. They realize, I don't think a lot of writers realize they have to actually sell their book, even if they're coming through an agent. The presentation is very important because but sometimes you get a wonderfully presented stuff, and yes, some writers will get somebody else to edit their book for them. So you get, yes, it needs work on, but you can see they made an effort, and that pleases me when I see that.
Yeah, thank you. Wajiha, is there something you'd like to add to this point?
Maybe just don't feel too bad about rejections, because the rejections are not about pure writing. It's basic. Sometimes the idea is amazing, but it's too similar to an already existing piece. Sometimes it's polished perfection, but it is not the right flavor for the particular magazine that you've sent it to. Your point of view about something, keeps shifting, or maybe it needs more work. in which case, I try and work with the writer. But, but rejection is, not always about you. The best way to deal with rejections probably is to take advantage of the constructive criticism that has been offered to you, if it is offered to you. And, and as cliche as it may sound, just keep writing, keep reading, because, to be frank, that is the only way to hone your writing skills. And don't think it is about you. It is seldom about you. It is, as one day, and one day as you keep practicing and you keep writing and submitting, you might just receive that reply that you've been waiting for.
Yes, we could not have had a panel with editors without having addressed rejection and the pain of it. So is there any instance, Mehvash and Rosemarie, is there any instance in which rejection should be taken personally? Like, do you sometimes ever just want to say to a writer, perhaps this is not what you should be doing?
No, 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 no. Rejection for me is never personal. It's about what it's about their work. Because I don't know this person enough to be personal. And even if I knew them well, I wouldn't be personal because it's all about the work. It's all about what's in front of me. And when I reject something, I try to encourage them how to move on from this, not to just go away and give up. It's a matter of working and honing your skills, or take some more classes, or get a mentor, or do some research in where writers can find various aids how to help them. But I never let an author feel I'm not good enough. No, for me, because the fact that I've said no for their manuscript is enough pain already. So it's a matter of helping them to move on and get over this rejection. And as I say, they might be giving me something completely outside of our list, which we do not work with. Sometimes a rejection can be sheer money, in the sense, for instance, if you're working with an agent, and the agent doesn't want to negotiate, and they say this book is so much and we can't accept less, and so you have to turn something down that you really like. Sometimes, so rejection comes in various forms.
Yeah.
It could be the cost. Sometimes the book is much too long, and you hear the author writer saying, "Oh well, I don't want it any shorter. I mean, there's 100,000 words for a new book," and they say, "No, I don't want it cut, and I don't want this." And well, by the time they read the first 50,000, they're done. So there's so many other ways of rejection, but never ever personal. No.
Thank you. Mehvash, is there something that you'd like to add to that? A perspective that writers can take on rejection so that they find the strength to keep going.
Yeah, because I do feel what Rosemarie says is absolutely right. And for you, I mean, it is always about the work. For the editor, it's always about the work, because you're not looking at the person who's sending it at that particular moment, unless you know that person. Even then, you are bound to sort of give honest advice. I feel like, I mean, even if it's somebody whose daughter writes and would very much like to see her daughter's work in print, but you're bound to give honest advice and perhaps say that she does have talent, but she needs to work harder. She needs to maybe get out of those easy tropes, which are the usual kind of thing that everybody sort of loves putting in their writing. And but sometimes I just feel, and the cliched thing is always a little bit of a turn off. So when you have something a little bit different and a fresh point of view, and something from within their own environment, that can be really exciting. I mean, so there was this young guy, I mean, I'm talking about tropes, and then all of a sudden you see somebody from the village, say, I mean, write something about an M&A, and the whole story, and it rings so much truer, because that is actually that is something that this boy has seen. I mean, and it is a real thing, as opposed to those very kind of inverted commas, those Western accepted things that you're supposed to write about, like bombast, this and that and the other. So it's never personal though for the editor. No.
Wonderful, thank you. With that, we've come to the end of our session. I would just like to extend my extreme gratitude to all three of you amazing ladies for joining us here today. And I'm sure this would have inspired a next round of editors who will find the courage to create these spaces, because clearly you all are having way too much fun doing it. Thank you very much. Wajiha, Mehvash, Rosemarie, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you, ladies. Goodbye. Thank you.
Yeah, same here. Bye-bye.